Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Ravens'Voice. Here's Tierson, and with me as usual is Zealous.
Hey everyone.
And tonight, and it was not, we did not promote this, but we have a special guest on the show tonight. We have Moonwalker, also known as Moonwalker 4, but we're just going to call him
Hello
Moonwalker.
there.
There he is. So he's, he's been around for a while. And you may know him as, he put together a great guide for Verdict Day before it came out.
hmm
And, he showed interest in wanting to come on the show a couple of weeks ago. We wanted to make that happen, but we just couldn't. So, but we're going to dig into Verdict Day a bunch tonight. That's going to be the topic tonight. And so we wanted to get him on here. So he was, happy enough to come on this week. Um, okay, so before we go on, I got to do the usual plugs here. Don't forget to go to www.armoredcorelegacy.com. Join the forums. Get into the conversations. I do believe it is the most active Armored Core forums going right now. If you want to send us an email, you can do that at ravensvoiceacl@gmail.com. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to Zealous. Take it away.
Right on. So as we know, it's evening for you and I, Tierson, but morning for Moonwalker here. But we're all gathered here just to talk about Verdict Day. We're kind of beyond some of our initial impressions after release, and we've had the title out for about a week now. So this has given us the opportunity not just to play, to check out some of the online modes and whatnot, and just get a feel for in-game, unlocking parts and completion. But most importantly, too, just to check on the community sentiment about this, to see what various forums have been saying, to see some of the posts we've had pop up regarding Verdict Day, and there's been a lot of info. People talking about everything from their Merc experiences to little things they found in game. So I think we're going to build a majority of what we speak about from that. And one of the threads I actually want to get right into to borrow from was from the podcast thread for this week. I believe it was titled, "So How's the New AC Game?" We had just some impressions and people talking about how they enjoyed the game so far. It was positive, a good reception, and we had some notes, some interesting things too. I think from Zeo4, he had a mention about both the part renames and also the tuning paths for weapons. And I just want to highlight these two things real quick. A lot of you probably noticed, especially if you played Armored Core 5, that the parts underwent a pretty drastic change in terms of name. The items that you knew before, the Lotus Battle Rifle, the Ortigara Quad Leg, so that's no longer the name. They're completely overhauled, and I think a lot of the colloquial slang we tend to still refer to these parts through is via the old names. At least I do.
You know,
I've
I
not memorized these.
I would not have known had you not pointed it out, even to this day. You pointed it out the day it came out. Otherwise, I would not have known at all. Because I gave up on memorizing the part names years ago. Years and years ago. I will refer to them as that little laser gun or that large laser gun. I will reference them by like the size of basically the size of the color or whatever of the gun. These, up until now, you couldn't, like, I don't think you completely change the color of the parts until like later on here in the PS3 game. So, but yeah, so the Kurosawa and the Moonlight. That's all I got. So
I'm
so
pretty, I'm
yeah.
pretty much the same thing as Tierson here. I don't memorize part names. Just basically something special about that feature, their ammo count, or their attack power, or something.
So it's more
And
by function.
Yeah, but you've joined
yeah,
Dark
basically.
Zealous. We were talking about this. You're like, I'm done. I'm done. You've seen like the same iteration of a gun like 16 times now. You give it up.
It's always so much fun talking about this though because you see how different players relate to parts and how you remember things. Some of us get just really in that loop and all concerned and pragmatic about that, and getting the names down. It's how we keep that stuff in our head. Others, it's like who cares? Go by the stats and the general look, and you're fine.
That's
Uh,
right.
in the best way, they're local to
Exactly.
they're local to each AC player. So, but there's things all over the place. I'm sure some of you are gonna get a headache looking at those things. I'm gonna try not to. I'm gonna try to adopt some of this chill Hawaiian lifestyle you guys have adopted here. I'm gonna try this on for size. And
That's right. That's
think
right.
think I'm gonna keep my blood pressure down a bit. But the second tier to what Zio was saying here, just about some parts and things he discovered was for the tuning specifically, and I think I'm just going to quote him here. This was just a few posts down. I want to say about 6 or 7. But he says, one of the biggest issues that I have already, and the reason why I know it needs patching right away, as in the game needs patching, is because they made clear errors for some of the weapon upgrade paths. He says, take one of the new laser rifles, for example, the Showdown MDL-2. Some of its upgrade paths cause its base lock-on to increase from 13,236 or even 26,344. And he says, keep in mind the rest of them are all between 128 to 153. He says, the worst part is it's not just an error in assembly. He said, I sat there for 3 minutes trying to red lock onto a stationary target point blank and nothing. They need to clean up a lot of things here. So I'm going to go ahead and put this straight in the list too for any of the email comments. If any of you have run across a really strange tuning path or something that just works really odd that you may have pointed out, some of us may not have seen yet, or it has not been spoken about, please toss us a line via
Yeah.
email or post them in the forums about it. We want to hear about these kind of things. I haven't personally run into anything like this yet. I got really busy checking out, the different weapon arm tuning paths and whatnot and how those work. But I hadn't seen an error like this yet, and I want to go around the table a bit here. And Tierson, have you bumped into anything like this yet?
Well, no, I haven't, but I do want to say, I just want to correct something that you just said there. Um,
Hmm.
Guys, if you do come across like any OP tunes or like any OP parts, don't post it on the forums. Don't email us. Email me personally. Keep that between us, and we'll just no, definitely post it. That's good stuff because I mean Namco does watch ACL. They've joined the forums over here, and I know that there are various regions that are paying attention to it. So they're reading this stuff, and so they'll look at this and they'll know what they need to fix. It's always good to be able to help. I really don't know what kind of beta testing they did for Verdict Day. I know it's a little bit different than what they did for 5, at least as far as some open beta testing, but besides that, I don't know what they did. But honestly, when you're going to have thousands of different iterations of parts and such, they're going to get a couple things wrong. So, that being said, I don't want to go into the next topic too quickly, but
Yeah.
and also I do want to note because it wasn't noted. The first half of the show, we're going to be talking about pretty much the game as a whole. Second half is going to be about online in general, or specific, I should say. So if you're looking for information on the online play and the online aspect of the game, that'll be in the second half. Definitely something that I feel needs some tuning though, at least as far as patching, I should say. Weapon arms.
Hmm.
Weapon arms. I think they dropped the ball overall on those things.
Well,
Yeah. No,
well,
I'm sorry.
it's just for a few weapons that needed a few or an upgrade basically. But
Yeah.
I think things like the heat cannon is basically doing damage on its own, even with the scrappy defense. Um, Maybe the heat shot, but I mean you had to be close range in the first place, so you'd be
I
dodging anyways.
I very, in talking about Verdict Day here and our opinions on it, probably the biggest problem I have with the game are the weapon arms. This was a big disappointment, as we've talked about in the past few shows. That was what I was looking forward to the most. That's what most players who had mentioned something on the forums or anything, that's what they were looking forward to the most. And there are some good ones, but there are some really bad ones. I mean, it makes me wonder again, talking about beta testing, how much they really looked at this. Because if they would have seriously compared some of these weapon arms to recreating similar types of, with the arms and then the weapons in their hands, they would have noticed that they missed the ball on this and that there's clearly an advantage on a lot of these different kind of weapon arms to just still going the same with AC5, putting on some good arms and then putting, weapons in the hands. The obvious advantage, despite anything that's unbalanced, is weapon arms with tanks. Well, and probably maybe with other legs as well. I haven't tested with it too much, but at least with tanks, you can have weapon arms and you can hanger cannons. That's pretty awesome and pretty
Hmm.
dangerous. But besides that, I'm not only not impressed, I'm a little upset about how weak they are.
Hey, this brings me around here to the second part of the table too. Moonwalker. Speaking on weapon arms here, what have been your impressions? How have you enjoyed them? And have you gotten any more out of them through tuning, or has it just pretty much been the same thing for you?
Uh, my personal opinion of weapon arms,
Yeah.
they're great. I especially love the laser one, the laser cannon.
Mm.
I mean, if you first thing is I noticed about the attack power. It's over 6,000 something TE attack TE damage, or not damage exactly, but just the attack power stat
Hmm.
compared to a laser cannon, the handheld laser cannon. It's close, like maybe 100 point difference. Sorry, 1,000 point difference,
Mm.
and you can use this on a moving AC. Doesn't have to be a tank, and that much attack power against any non-heavies is just crazy.
I think
Or
we're lost with a lot of these things is the difference between the lack of armor versus the weight of these weapon arms. It's ridiculous, and in some cases the amount of energy that they take.
well, that's true, but I'm mostly a heavyweight player, so I don't have any weight issues.
All right, fair enough. And well, then this might just be a difference of perspective then from what kind of ACs that you play. I usually play. I always have a tank that I mess around with, but generally I play lightweights and middles. So maybe that's just a difference of a perspective on that. Especially, the game still has it's only been on a little over a week, so
Yeah.
no
Hmm.
one has a broad perspective of the game as a whole at this point.
No.
Regarding the weapons or overpower weapons, there's still too many weapons to try to determine which is too powerful, which is too
Oh, in
or not
terms of
that
balance,
effective.
yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. While it is a little early for those things, I think uh, one interesting thing to look at too is the way people are kind of deciphering through builds. There's been a lot of talk, not just on ACL, but in other various spots about lightweights. Because of both the energy addition and the speed upgrades we've had here in Verdict Day, about just the sheer mobility factor and the ability of lightweights in vanilla AC5 as opposed to now. And play styles are still they're going to evolve. Things are going to change. There's room for things to be defined. But with that, I think also gives us some time to kind of analyze the different weapons that fall in those categories. How do different classes counter, let's say, the new speed of lightweights, for example. The mid and heavy game. That's going to be really fun to watch develop. I know in terms of weapons, there's already been little interesting things that have surfaced. I was looking at the heat weapon arms, and we were speaking about these, before the show. Then I was kind of surprised to see that the old school Lotus, I'm just going to nickname it Lotus. I have no idea what it's called now. Um,
Oh
that,
no.
Hmm.
yeah, that velocity beat the standard version of that arm's velocity. And you would think as you give part armor, part functionality, part weapon loadout, just to use weapon arms and whatnot. You usually look for a higher end tier of said weapon. And honestly, the heats remind me of very, very large battle rifles. And you could say, oh, it's just a larger shell, so it's going to be changed. But it's just little differences like that have already popped up. And I guess it's a wonder how some of those things will work into playstyles. But
Uh,
My impression of the heat cannons or the weapon arms, they're really uh, dangerous. Because what I think is that the attack power listed is basically for one half of the cannon. How about you, Tirson? Or you haven't
when
tried it yet?
I think they suck. That's particularly what I was testing on. I was weighing the pros and the cons of using some of the heat cannons versus setting myself up old school with some arms and some of the heat cannons, which I had a tank that was double heat cannons in AC5. Loved it.
Hmm.
So I mean, I was coming from definitely an experienced perspective, at least as much as one can, coming from that type of weapon from AC5 to Verdict Day. I was extremely disappointed. I thought I was giving up way too much to use those cannon arms. I tested them out for a while. Actually, I weighed all the options when it came to weapon velocity, damage, the amount of weight that I'm sacrificing basically to use these things in AP versus throwing on a decent pair of arms and putting those heat cannons back in my hands. And I was like, there's no comparison here. The old school way was just seemed a lot better, and maybe part of that is familiarity too. Maybe it's just because I have a
Mm.
better feeling on how they work. But that's why you got to go with it. It's not a brand new game; it's an expansion, and if I don't have to relearn everything, I'm okay with that. So, but at the end of the day, I was just like, no, I mean, screw these. I just gonna toss them aside. I was like, what? I'll wait until they fix them because I think there will be some patching on the weapon arms.
And I think part of that too, when we have to be kind of wary when comparing some of the old values. Obviously, parts have not just changed in name. We've just had a straight out overhaul in terms of stats. So it's kind of dangerous just to assume, apples and oranges, or apples and apples rather, that it's just the same thing you're dealing with, because it's not. Each of these categories deserves to be looked at in a fresh light, especially with how you're approaching your weapon loadout and how you gear your AC. Some of you that ported over your AC 5 data into Verdict Day probably noticed that she had different AP scores, even and whatnot, and that's a sign in and of itself that there's a lot that's changed, even down to the frame. But I think that's a great thing. I think that opens up for even more customization and breathes some life into parts that we've been looking at since AC5 and we've seen, especially when it comes to the retrofit parts. That segues right into that. I love this edition personally. We've seen little tweaks throughout the AC series. Usually it's just internal tweaks. Easier you see an AC able to perform something you can't do. Finals Zenaida and Last Raven, for example. It's not like you see a massive aesthetic change, but she obviously has op-eye abilities. But what's changed here, in Verdict Days, we have parts that are physically different. You have like the old Animus arms, for example, and they have a retrofit version that has defenses that are slightly different, slightly tweaked. That might fit more into your plan. You might have a part with less energy drain, or they're just curtailed in a certain way to fit your AC better, or maybe just to be stronger in one aspect and weaker in another. And I've fallen in love with these. I think you have so many more frame options. I feel if you're trying to look at your defenses specifically, you can balance those out more. So, uh, what have your experiences been with the retrofit parts, Moonwalker? Do you really make use of them much, or do you?
Honestly, they are a good addition, but I mean the new stats for them is just uh,
Minor.
not minor, not confusing even.
Mm,
It's like it gives you, I mean, multiple choices. I mean, if you really want to sacrifice the KE defense for extra CE, or do you want to keep
right.
the top-notch KE defense?
Right.
I mean, you could balance out the three defenses, but then basically you're weak to everything still. I mean,
Yeah.
the whole balancing out might be a negative overall impact on your AC,
Mhm.
basically. But I mean, the new looks is really nice. How the part changes and
Yeah.
how the differentiate from the first or the original form.
Hmm.
Yeah, I have to say, I think the retro fit parts probably one of the best things we've seen come along in Armored Core in years. I love it. I think it's what a lot of us have always really wanted. While we can't tune them ourselves, which I think
Hmm.
would have ultimately been the best way to go. I can understand, I guess, any various reasons why they did do that. Still, the retrofit's pretty neat. If you play this game enough and you're enough of a fan of Armored Core, you will always think in your mind when building an AC, God, if only this was different. If only it
Yeah.
had a little bit more weight. If only the defenses were a little different
Yeah.
this. It's there. And often enough, I think it will fit what a lot of people are looking for. Obviously, they didn't try to fit every kind of angle. Well, this retrofit is better with KE. This retrofit's better with CE. They didn't go that route, which I
Right.
think is okay. You know, you, I definitely I can appreciate them not trying to please everyone all the time with the retrofits. I think that's a smart way to go to not try to do that because if they did and then they got a lot of it wrong, all you hear is bitching about retrofits. So,
Hmm.
um, so I no, I love it. I think it's great, and the fact that they look the same, but they change a little bit to them. I think it's awesome. Retrofit definitely a huge plus. Cheng was freaking out about those last week, and I didn't really understand because I'd spent a few hours with the game, but not a lot. I hadn't really looked at retrofit parts yet.
Mhm.
Now I understand. Now I understand. When last week's show, he was like, "Man, I'm all about those. They're awesome."
exactly. Some of these things in the past, such as energy drain, that had really minor tweaks you could do. You could, back in the Nexus era, you could pull down the drain of a radiator or something. But it's almost like a different way to do it with some parts, just depending on how they're spec'd or how they look. And let's face it, if you're an Armored Core fan, I think for a lot of us, some of the aesthetics, this kind of fall into play a bit. I know I like seeing the I'll cite them again just because I like to look at the arms. The Animus arms with the retrofit version has the kind of more lightly armored plates, or it looks like the front panels, or at least the side panels of the shoulders, are missing, or they're shaped a little different. Love it, love it, love it, love it. But
Well, so I'm going to segue that then.
yeah.
I think we might be losing Moonwalker here. Looks like his connection's getting a little weak.
Hmm.
But I'm going to segue that since we're talking about aesthetics at that point. I'm going to double down on a couple complaints that I had.
Hmm.
Thought maybe this wouldn't bother me so much or anything. Still bothers me just as much. So I'm gonna bitch about it a little bit more. No new workshops. I mean, I'm sorry, but in an expansion, that's exactly what you expand on, and I'm upset about that. No new decals. Not happy about that either. Again, this is an expansion, and these are easy things to do. But in particular with the workshop, and we were talking about this, that's what you spend the most time in. Really, is your workshop, and I love how they did workshops in AC5, and I'm not asking for them to change that. I just would have liked to have seen more coming into this expansion. At least give us one new workshop for the game.
Right. I mean, again, you still have what you ported over from AC5. If you had those garages, or if you got some of the extras, those are still there. But there's nothing built on top of that. And that is an odd thing, just considering some of the other revamps you had. We've spoken about the maps a lot, I think, during our last couple of shows. But
Uh,
yeah, that's a whole nother bag of worms.
Yeah, I'm
But
gonna save that for the second half, especially now that we lost Moonwalker here. Hopefully, we'll get him back for the
right,
second half of the show. But that's kind of an online thing. That's kind of
yeah,
a like a thing. So
and those
I'll bite my lip until then.
no problem. Yeah, and like you said, those come into play more during free battle. But yeah, just in terms of designing, little unfortunate. We missed that. Now, then again, you look forward. There very well could be a DLC pack where you get some new things. I mean, we had that for 5. Originally, where you had some of the optional shops that came out to add. So obviously, we can't forecast. Well, it's coming out this date. This is where it's going to happen. No, we don't have that information yet, but it very well
And
could.
I think that's fine, and as long as they do it. Now, the
Right.
only thing that they've said about any kind of DLC is that they hope to someday open up UNAC ACs for free battle, which I'm assuming would come in either a DLC or some kind of patch. As far as I know, they haven't said anything more. Please correct me if I'm wrong on that, anybody. But which should have been available to begin with. I mean, that really, like I was saying before the show, that cuts the UNACs right at the knees.
Right.
That dude. I mean, you're going to put something in, something that takes that much time, that much customization to build your AI, and then okay, that's cool. World mode is cool to be able to use that in, and it looks like world mode is definitely better than Conquest was. But and I'm going to move past that. But
Yeah.
because we are talking in online, but yeah, that's a shame. Um, well, so let's see. Let's talk a little bit about the story.
Yeah.
Uh, the story we have here, 10 missions, just like AC5.
Hmm.
You're more of a story guy, so you go ahead and do that because I'm definitely not a story
Yeah,
guy.
we had, like you said, our 10 missions, and we had the order missions around it. It's interesting that the mission structure here in Verdict Day, and I believe we covered this a little bit before, how you don't just move straight through each main campaign mission, how you have to do essentially order missions in between, to progress with the rest of the story. And with that element, there's kind of a your RPG style system of leveling, essentially, of gaining ranks. The more ranks you gain, obviously, the more parts you can unlock in the shop till you get to A rank. But yeah, in terms of where where they went with story in this one, like you, Tirson, I really enjoyed the Maggie and Fat Man little side story. It's something small, it's a little vignette, but I thought it was a good addition. And by the time you reach near the end of that process, you have the whole thing resolved, and it's a nice pocket element. Now, I don't think you can mention story in Verdict Day without mentioning so many of the references to the past next gen games we've had. And I think where that really comes in as well is what you even see during the missions and the order missions. Some of you probably recognize, especially those of you who have played through FA and AC4 and some of the other next-gen titles. There's just some maps with ruins of very, very familiar weapons that you fought against. For example,
Right?
even arms forts and ruins of cradles and whatnot. It instantly raises a lot of questions. And I know I was kind of surprised that it even tied this a little bit in with the soundtrack list, which I want to talk about a little bit later. But Spirit of Mother Will was even mentioned in that, and then you have very, very direct correlations with that in game too. It's things didn't feel quite as abstract as AC5. Armored Core always has that element of abstraction to it. I understand. There were some things that were more direct about it, and especially our semi-surprised end boss. And I know you just love Tears. I'm saving
Uh,
I'm saving that one for you. But
yeah.
but
You're gonna need to save me some time on that one.
yeah, I will. But
What what I
overall,
noticed about
Oh, he's
what I
back.
noticed
there
about
he goes. Welcome back.
sorry
Welcome back.
to intrude.
I got it on. I thought we were gonna have to bring you back during the break, but apparently he'll just come right back in.
Resurrection.
All right, welcome back, Moonwalker. Guys,
Mhm.
we are. I think as I was talking about, we are talking from a great span of distance here, about across the world here.
Hmm.
So, we're Zealous and I from the U.S. Moonwalker is from the Middle East. So, yeah, we may have a little bit of a problem with the connection every once in a while.
But
Regarding the topic about the special bosses or
yeah,
anything,
yeah.
or I mean the connection between the AC games, I tend to notice that the From Software likes to tease their players about
Hmm.
the connection and then
Oh,
deny they're related at
Yep.
all.
Yep.
the
Like the
debacle that was Ninebreaker and the connection then of the AC3 world with the previous ones, and oh my god, a lot of angry posts about that years ago.
Like in interviews, they'll just say that these words are never connected or they're not connected in any way, and then they'll try to tease you with it with
oh
their
yeah.
representations or links.
Mm. Well,
Like
he's going right into it, man. So I'm just going to go there.
yep.
Let me see this talk. So, spoiler. We've kind
Hmm.
of teased, but the boss. Well, it's never. I don't think there's been any specific reference to it, but it's obvious that the last boss for Verdict Day is a black version of White Glint, like white, bleh, White Glint, which a lot of people have just simply called Black Glint, obviously. Okay, this sucks for me on two different levels, for two very distinct reasons. If you listen to the show regularly, you know I am not a fan of Armored Core 4. In particular, which I don't know if you've actually said this or not, I'm in particular not a fan of White Glint. I think White Glint is a symbol of a lot of what was wrong with the first two games that came out on the PS3 and Xbox 360. So, just that type of AC and the fact that From Software has openly said that they wanted to make White Glint the mascot, the new mascot for Armored Core. There's no reason to dethrone Ninebreaker or Nine Ball. There's no reason for that, so that kind of ticks me off too. As a veteran of the series and the older games, you don't need to fix that. It's not broken. Nine Ball's awesome, so that kind of ticked me
Hmm.
off a little bit. So for them to bring him in, he's black, but so that was a little annoying. That was actually very annoying. But mainly what annoyed me about the boss is that this is just another super uber boss. It's so similar to the previous boss in AC5, and it's just I mean it's so similar to the point where the first time I actually fought the last boss, I nearly beat him just on the first attempt because it's basically it's almost a rinse, wash, repeat. If you've been playing Armored Core, you kind of have a feel on how these last bosses are going to go. And that was always a disappointment for me that they continue to do this with these giant bosses, and their mega super archangel pulverizer powers, and this is it's so it actually that's what upset me the most. It's like, oh fuck, another one of these, it's to the point where you get about halfway through the battle, and he's acting like, oh, I'm gonna die. And he's like, oh, that's what I would say if I was really dying. It's like, I know you're not really gonna die. You haven't transformed into your more super awesome uber yet. That's you can't die until that happens because that's what they do with these last bosses. So it's very disappointing. I always like to see them get more inventive, especially when you come out of the gate with Armored Core 1 with that very inventive last fight. With nine ball, and you not only have to fight one, you have to fight two, and just it was just very cool. And even since day one, they've set a really good bar, really high bar. And a couple bosses like this, I think, are fine, but to see it over and over, and then even the map that you fight that boss in is kind of rehashed from AC5, and it's just like really, that's just it was a shame. I was upset about that to see that they went that route with
Now that you mention it, I did realize that since AC4, the last battles are like direct. Because of up to last Raven, you had to go through corridors, fight few ACs on the way, then you had to fight the last boss in a half damage or critically damaged AC. But here, after AC4, it's like the mission starts and you're directly in front, face to face with the final boss. So that took away a lot of the handicap, basically.
At least you get to come in you fresh with full of whatever weapons you had and whatnot.
Hmm.
But what how did you dig the last challenge? And what did you think? What did you make of the story overall this time for Verdict Day, Moonwalker?
Uh, really like the voice acting of Chief. I probably shouldn't say that.
Any element, honestly, any element, if anything, jumped out to you about the main campaign or the main plot during this one, or really, were there any points for that matter that really jumped out at you? Was it all just kind of a even kind of average road?
No, well, what I like about the story is that I mean, it's not as predictable as you think.
Hmm.
I mean, especially about regarding the secondary characters, maybe,
Hmm.
or they're probably the main characters, but you're the main player, so I don't know how you classify them. I
Well,
mean,
and I was going to say, I think you were gone when Zeus brought this up, and I think you're talking more about the side story between Batman and Maggie, which I think is the best part of the story overall.
hmm,
Um, but yeah.
I mean, those two characters are they interact in a way that you don't like. You'd never see it coming, basically, and especially when it came down to the uh, the final battle where you had to face off Black Glint.
Hmm.
Normally, you'd find the final boss would be all acting superior and I'm the god of this world and everything. But in this one, it's different acting. I liked it the most.
Yeah, within that too, within that last boss battle, I want to take a look at aesthetics here. We spoke a little bit about this earlier on. One thing I found really interesting about that was you had the glint frame fused with a lot of elements. It arrived in a almost VOV style, craft carriage,
Hmm.
but the AC itself was almost fused with a like a scavenger. And we saw these in AC5 first appear, the raptor dinosaur, like whatever you want to call them. Hovers that had a very powerful, closer range attacks, missile swarms, and whatnot. And I thought it was kind of neat how you saw this tech kind of develop. In AC5 we had the basic scavengers, and then this kind of builds. Towards the later order missions of Verdict Day, they're heavily armored. They have large missile launchers by this point, much more AP. Tougher to kill. And then we see the last revolution of it. We see parts of that fused with the glint frame, and some of this we're not going to see the very end of. We have this mention that the battle for the towers has begun. It's probably not something that's going to be concluded because here we are at the end of PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. Unless From wants to make a direct link for the next Armored Core that comes out, but that's probably something we won't see evolve further. But I thought it was an interesting design choice, at least, that to bring MT frames like that, if you could even call those MTs, into part of some of the main enemies. So.
Well, I told you my theory on this. I don't think they ever intended on making Verdict Day the same world as AC4 and 4 Answer. I think this was a last minute decision to sell games, which I think is fine because at the end of the day, I don't really care about the story to begin with, like Moonwalker. I do have a question out there though, because I know that there are members of the community that really do care about this, and in particular, like the fact that they've merged this. They've kind of gone full circle with these games now on this generation of console, which I think is that's fun. Okay, make it full circle. God knows we haven't seen that every time with Armored Core. So, um, how do you explain this? How do you explain that you see all this stuff, which in a world, Verdict Day in a world that is a couple hundred years past AC5? Why is it that we never saw any of this stuff that was in the same, which has now been concluded to be the same world? Why didn't we see any of these things from AC4 and 4 Answer in AC5? Why didn't we see any, the, what do they call them? What's the mother thing? What's that?
It's the spirit of Motherwell?
Spirit of Mother World or whatever. Why didn't
Motherworld.
whatever it is, I don't care. Why didn't we see any of those? Why didn't we see any things in five? And why are they digging out smaller ACs and not hitting the gigantic ACs first? What's up with that? And how? I'm asking this a little cynically, but actually seriously at the same time. If somebody has theories as to why how this actually ends up all working, at the same time, how do the towers play a role in this? Because now they're actually kind of connecting all that stuff. The Reaper Squad is obviously the leader of the Reaper Squad was Black Lint in Verdict Day, and they were defending the towers, and going. I'm not really sure what they were doing with the towers. They were doing something. The Reaper Squad was doing something with them with the Unax, at some point in the story. But it's serious, and, it's confusing. It's an Armored Core story, and it doesn't have to make a lot of sense. But I am asking for those that, because there are members of the community that really do like to dig into this stuff. How does this all work together? Because there's a lot of holes in this.
And
And in particular, how do they just pass by Armored Core 5 when it comes to the connection of these games? That is why I don't think they were actually intended to be connected,
yeah,
when it comes to Verdict Day and the previous ones.
and this definitely draws back to the threads of old. Like we said earlier, we've had all kinds of talks about the links in the AC universe, other non-links and whatnot. So if you got opinions, if you got theories, crack theories, whatever you got, by all means, post and discuss those things. It'd be a pleasure to hear them. I was thinking about the towers myself earlier, and I said, I'm sure if you broke into one, you'd find probably Ryder Palash and Noblesse Oblige having a cup of tea or something. I don't know, but but nonetheless, with especially the Reaper Squad leader and whatnot, I read that as however they did the resurrection of the Glint craft as a unit that was handed to him perhaps for that specific battle. I mean, we hadn't seen what he really piloted before, so you really didn't get a chance to fight against him a whole lot during the main campaign. You heard from him, but that battle was the first where you ran into him. And again, high-end Foundation tech. A lot of it's just kept in the shadows. Again, a lot of things we don't know about because we didn't even get to the true inside of one of these tower structures or the main frame and how they function. So uh, this will give us something to talk about for a long time. But real quick too, before we wrap and we go into our next segment, and this kind of goes along the lines with the statics, but I do want to cover it real quick. And I'm sure some of you probably aren't too bothered with it, but it's the soundtrack for AC. I'm a huge fan of the Armored Core soundtracks. I collect them as they come out and whatnot. And I noticed the Verdict Day soundtrack is available on iTunes now if you go to download that, besides the hard copy. And one thing I noticed was it's the first soundtrack for AC that was completely composed or performed rather by Kota Hoshino's band Frequency. And here you have From Software leveraging the From Records label right into one of their games. Normally we have our tracks labeled as produced by From Software or Kota Hoshino or a single composer or just different various sources. But here, Frequency, they covered it all, and I thought it was a solid job, frankly. The few orchestral accompaniments that you did have, I think they didn't feel awkward. For example, Sound You Smash from AC4 I thought felt a little out of place, but the way they were integrated here in Verdict Day, I thought it worked. And I thought it worked really well. You've got some good remixes here as well. A remix of Stain, the last boss from my AC5. You've got a huge remix in the end boss. This is one reason why I love the end boss of Verdict Day. It's a giant remix of Remember from 4A, and I actually enjoyed that song, and Kota Hoshino loves it because he's mixed it multiple times too. It's called Mechanized Memories. And even down to the what I nicknamed the anthems, to what you have for Armored Core. And by anthems, I mean those main themes that we kind of pick up AC by. For Nexus, you had Shining, right, in that intro, and some of the themes you hear repeated throughout the game, like Autobahn or different versions that are merged. Here it was, I'd argue at least, some of you others might have different opinions, but I argue it was Dirty Worker. They had a couple of others They had a Dirty Worker feat for the soundtrack at the end, a little bonus track, and some of the rest. But I really enjoyed the soundtrack here. I had a blast with it, and I don't know. I just kind of wanted to get you guys' take on it. On your way through Verdict Day, did you hear the soundtrack? Did you enjoy it, or was it just a moot point? I mean,
Well,
What you got, Walker?
the most soundtrack you'd hear all day is the factions theme music, because it's going to keep playing all day while you're on the main screen.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
I regretted my choice of was it EFG or
uh,
EGF? I regretted that about 10 minutes into it.
evergreen, evergreen.
Oh my god, this is really bad. It gets extremely annoying. And I've heard the other two are even were not worse, but at least as bad as that one. We've reset at this point. We're in a new season. I'm not picking a team. I'm not picking a faction. I'm staying out of these. I don't want to have to deal with that. That was so bad. I'm sorry, Moonwalker, but you hit the topic that I wanted to talk about when it came to the soundtrack. So
no, the soundtrack was fine, but I mean, like, maybe out of the three factions I've heard of them on YouTube, I think Vanity is probably the oddest one out,
Hmm.
because it's more, I don't know, it's like one of the not orchestra, but something you hear on the church or something like that,
Hmm.
or in a lonely mansion or something like a scary mansion. It's just weird.
Some of these though, the way they work in terms of mood and whatnot, and the way they flow. You say that it's interesting. There was a track. I don't know if some of you remember this one, Switchyard, I believe, back from Another Age. There's a track that really reminded me of that in Verdict Day, and it's called "On the Land of Barking Smell." Some of the oddest names you get from the AC soundtracks. It's just strings of thoughts and words. Some of these things, but no, the mood set really, really, really reminded me of what you had from that. It's kind of really just open-ended kind of wasteland style theme, and it actually matched the mission very well. Switchyard, I believe, in Another Age was used when you were taking out some of the disorders out in, I think, Zerum Desert. It was a crashed specimen cargo plane that you had to go investigate, and you ended up having to exterminate everything there. Huge cover-up. List goes on and on. But
well, the AC2 and Another Age, the music in those two games themselves kind of set them apart. That is some seriously trippy stuff in those two games. It is cool. And don't get me wrong, I complain about the faction music. I think the music in this game overall is great. In particular, I noticed it was a bit better than 5 and some of the others. I definitely think it stands out as one of the better soundtracks, except for those factions. Good
right,
God! But no, it's good. Yeah.
for sure. And I guess the other note in that too, I was going around some of the other forums, kind of checking to see what was the other pulse about this. GameFAQs, actually GameFAQs boards had a few notes about it, but this was talked about a lot on ACU. In fact, there's a dedicated thread to it. It's called, in fact, I have it here. It was called just Music and Armored. Well, there's Music and Armored Core 5, and there's one for Verdict Day, but I think there was a user 13th Night brought up just some similar ideas about the topic. So it's out there. It's being discussed at least, and I haven't seen a whole lot of talk about AC music in a while. So it's good to see that it's out there, and that people at least dug it or have contrary opinions about it. So
And I do have to say, just on that again, the theme, the main theme for Verdict Day,
yeah,
excuse me, I really do like that. I think that's fun. I think that's a good song.
awesome.
I'm just
So
throwing that out there.
no, it's good.
Boom, dead weight.
Like an anchor, man.
Before we go to break, because I don't really think that we've talked about the mechanics of the game enough here before we move on to the online portion of this.
Mhm.
You did touch on the fact that lightweights are a little bit faster and middleweights are too, but lightweights I know some people think are maybe even a little too fast. Honestly, I haven't played with those enough to know. But actually, if you remember the show we did 2 weeks ago, Zealous, where I was hoping that they would tweak things a bit, and that I thought things were maybe just a little too slow. little, things were a little too dense. Things felt a little too clunky. They actually, I think, in most part, I think they got it right in Verdict Day now. Huge plus to them. While obviously there's a couple things to tweak here. I think flight and boosters and how you maneuver overall wasn't changed a lot. I think it was in large part, changed just enough.
I think about regarding the boosters or flight in general. I think it's either they reduce the energy drain or the capacities work differently.
Mm-hmm.
Because the numbers look the same, but you seem to have more energy than you used to in Armored Core 5.
Yeah. No, agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you do. I mean, part of that, this was part of the initial impressions, of Verdict Day that we covered, just with how AC movement feels, period, and what's available to you, and your boost time, whether you're using glide boost or high boost or whatnot. You just have more room to maneuver. I mean, period. I know there were some players that I think were kind of hoping things stayed, at a kind of semi-lock because, well, people would learn better if you had to deal with the more constrained system. People would have to adapt to these things and go forward with it, and that, we don't want to make lazy players or whatnot and things like that. But I think what we have here is, it's an interesting balance. Obviously, things are going to be patched. We're not even into the first one yet. That's something we're going to have to track closely, and I know I'm going to try to develop a log for it. I did this late in 5, and I should have done it earlier, but just following certain parts, how they were enhanced, and through the patch logs and whatnot, and just keeping that closely side by side instead of just keeping it in my head, because you will see changes. They're going to come. Now, I was talking about that rifle to you, Tierce, I want to say it was the Tansy, and I'm probably incorrect on that, but we had a rifle for 5 that was modified at least twice directly during patches, and then indirectly, through some of the weapon changes and whatnot. And I always think that's interesting when you see patterns like that in patches, when you see a specific part that's been brought up multiple times. And I'm not sure if we're going to see that down to the detail of frames here with Verdict Day or not, but since there's a lot of talk about speed, maneuverability, balance, the usage of how the acceleration boosters are working, it may very well happen. So.
Well, and in talking about that and talking about how maybe lightweights are a little too fast, or at least saying they are definitely a lot faster than they were. Some legs did get a big nerf, in my opinion. That's tanks.
Mm.
Tanks had their day in AC5, and I think that's great. They were obviously slowed down in Verdict Day, and I think a bit too much. I don't agree with this decision, and I'm really kind of confused as to why they did it.
I honestly haven't noticed that much change in tank legs, and I'm using them daily. Well, not daily, I mean every time, basically.
Really?
Maybe
Well,
just
maybe that's just the fact that I had a tank, but I didn't use it all the time. So maybe it was we discussed this a little bit in last week's show when we played the game for a little bit. And Cleric and Cheng both also very big tank fans. And Cleric had noted something. I probably would have kept my mouth shut unless he had they hadn't said something, because I mean it is, depending on your tank legs, it can be very subtle. But if you're used to making lightweight tanks and using those.
Oh yeah, those are affected a lot because the jumping ability for the tanks is just dramatically reduced.
Yeah.
That's the biggest change I've seen. But other than that, they still do their job basically, especially in tank kicking.
Well, so again, that's probably just a difference of perspective on which is part of the beauty of this game. So if you're used to heavier tanks, probably what Moonwalker's saying, you're probably not going to notice too much of a difference. But definitely in the lighter tanks, which is what I used, you will notice it, and it's almost a bit of a turn off.
Yeah.
So just use heavier tanks.
More armor, more guns.
What's about your tank and load that sucker up.
Oh man. So I'm sure we'll have more in the reception, and we can get somewhat into this, I think, as we start to discuss online play. I know in some of the other threads we'd had, Godlike and a few others had comments about just teams right now and perceptions, and I guess designs how this new system has attributed to online play and whatnot. And naturally, the two are going to go hand in hand. So that'll be a great spot to look at that in our second half. And I think with that, we will go ahead and wrap and get ready to transition. So again, stay tuned. We'll be discussing some of the online features and some of the experiences we've had with Verdict Day. In that regard, coming right up.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Ravens' Voice. Tierson and then Zealous is here,
Hello.
and we still got Moonwalker with us. He hasn't disconnected again yet.
Yep, I'm here.
All right, he's there. He's actually there. Okay, so second half of the show, we wanted to dedicate, and we think it deserves its own certain amount of time. Obviously, when it comes to Armored Core, you have the story, you play through that, you get your parts, you try to get the subquests and get the best rank. But really, what it comes down to is it comes down to online play. This is obviously a staple that's at one time needed for the game, but obviously is one that is here now. Online play for AC5, which I'm sure most of you know. Free battle was good. Your basic duels and team matches and battle royals. I mean, that was all fairly solid system that all worked well. But what would be the centerpiece of the game, the conquest mode, really just fell short. The system just didn't work. The fact that things were region locked the way that they were with the game just didn't work well with it. So they've made some changes. Conquest mode is now called World mode. Region lock has been changed. There's only 2 region locks for this game. You have Japan, and then you have the rest of the world. Now, Zealous and I we've dipped our toes into online play a little bit, but we're kind of similar in this where until we've got all the parts, and until we really know what we have to play with as far as building our ACs, we don't delve into there too much yet. However, Moonwalker, and this is part of the reason why it's great to have him on this week, he has been all over online play, especially with you and your team. And what's your team name?
Metal Falcons.
Metal Falcons. There you go. Pretty awesome. So tell us, Moonwalker. I'm just going to give it to you here. Tell us about World Mode.
Well, World Mode is basically probably the intended conquest system that From Software had on ACV, but didn't work out that well. So instead of having your team controlling a territory in order to have a match with other teams, you're now one of 3 factions, which you've obviously known by now, and you get to do missions against other factions or mock battles against the same teams from the same faction.
All right.
The way the match system, the matchmaking system works is that you have you get a priority of meeting other teams regardless of which faction they are, and if not, you're just going to get stuck facing turrets or doing some quick 2-minute missions, which is just destroying crates and helicopters.
So how often? So I think the biggest question that people have is with the region lock being the way it is now, and also the fact that the game is still fairly new. Are you, the biggest problem with Conquest was that you would be sitting there a lot of time doing nothing, or if you were sitting there doing nothing, most of the time you'd just be doing basic Conquest things like taking out turrets or taking out helicopters. How active is the new world mode when it comes to other players? Are you button heads a lot with other teams?
Well, depending on the time you play, does have a role in meeting other teams. Usually, nighttime in US would be a good active time because I'm seeing a lot of teams during that time, which basically around this time when we're recording now, I'm finding a lot of teams to play with. And if it's not the full team, you'd find at least some smart player hiring mercs. So you'd still have a complete squad versus squad matches, basically.
Okay, now if I remember correctly, the UK in general, both on the PS3 and the 360 side, things kind of died out pretty quickly for that region. Am I remembering that correctly?
Well, it's kind of like off and on again because I've been playing ACV even in the European region like daily. Not daily, but I mean all the time. I keep as much as I can.
Mhm.
And from time to time, it would die out. Then some random team would stir things up again and try to get people playing again.
Oh, that's
I mean,
cool.
and usually the most active people are either Italians or French. They seem to never get bored of the game. Don't know
Well,
why.
hey, it's a great game. I mean, come on, I shouldn't have to sell it. You listening to the show, you know it. But no, okay. But so now that they've combined the regions, you're finding it fairly active now.
Very active. I mean, coming from the European region, this is really a big improvement. I don't know how it is compared to the the North American version, but this is more than we could hope for. Especially and most of my members are from UK and Australia, so we know how it was in the European server, and we're liking this a lot. Any chance we get to face players is like a blessing.
Mm,
And we don't have to wait that long. Just maybe every 2 or 3 missions, you'd run into at least one team.
that's
So it's
pretty good.
pretty good odds.
Yeah, that's definitely a lot better than the last one. The U.S. I got into AC5 just a couple months after it came out. Is when I got back into Army Corps, and even at that point, while there was activity, the matching for Conquest is, I think, what really gimped it more than anything. Especially because you knew there were active teams out there trying to match up with other
Mhm.
people, but Conquest really just almost seemed like it was built not to allow that. It was very weird,
It
but.
was I don't it was complicated, but for ACV you had to have a team defending a territory or waiting for attack. Basically,
Right.
that's what made it hard to uh, stick to because you had to wait in a boring briefing room for. I mean, 30 minutes is a lot for anyone to stay in unless you have your laptop with you and you're chatting with someone else. But in AC and Verdict Day, you can be both defense and offense just by starting the mission. And
So
you don't
you,
have to wait in your turn. You don't have to wait in your territory for someone to come to you. You can just go on a mission, and the matchmaking system would put you as defense or offense depending on I don't know, maybe by chance or depending on territory.
so the priority has switched from what kind of conquest mission you're doing to matching people up and then dictating the conquest mission or the world mode mission. But in this case,
Exactly.
actually, you can specify what kind of mission you do too, or you can throw it up to random if I remember that correctly.
You can, I mean, preference basically. The sorting conditions um, uh, on the sortie screen, you can set the conditions, and the conditions basically ask like a preference. You're still going to get what you don't like, but this is your preference, your priorities, and that's what you want to play with.
Right, right. So,
Mm.
what do you think about all that, Zels? I mean, that sounds pretty good. It sounds like it sounds like a good, honest attempt to solve the problem.
Yeah, we've always gone back and forth about conquest mode, armored fishing, as some people have nicknamed it. And the,
But fishing.
the good part is, obviously you aren't sitting in those kind of queues. What I enjoyed most, the first time I jumped in and checked that out for world mode was that it was a way to simultaneously engage players in an overall world campaign while giving us a more viable online mode to play. And by more viable, I think a lot of us are content with just functioning and just being able to get matches and being able to participate. We've had some players who've had I think a faster ascent and a rapid advancement who have like a higher ranking the team, and some of them want to run into I guess get opponents more active. But the good part about this is as you advance, especially as you advance your team rank, that some of the pairings will change. The various matchmaking that the people you run into within that, and I think that's pretty cool. Like, in addition, with the way you can switch each season, if you want, who your the alignment goes with. We talked a bit about the themes you'll get stuck with going around and around like evergreen,
Oh,
but no, it's a fun aspect. This really reminds me of the Balena Emerald Zeo Matrix relationship, the Mirage, Crest, Kisaragi, whatever you want to look at it as. We have these three groups that represent very similar poles to how we did in past Armored Cores again. And anything, I've always enjoyed this. Anything that feels like an active, ongoing campaign. I've had a lot of fun with that. Front Mission had a few elements like that. I know maybe the past, Mech Warriors as well, and it's nice to see something like that in AC. So
Those are dirty words you're bringing up there.
part of this mechaverse, we know AC is the king of it, of course, but nonetheless, we've had some that have tried, who've attempted,
Oh yeah,
and
definitely.
have fallen short.
There's a reason you don't bring those names up.
Catch me for blasphemy here.
I,
You
I
are,
could,
man.
I
It's
could,
blasphemy.
I could twist Tierson's view of AC with one word:
What's that?
front mission. Front mission. If you look
Ugh.
at ACs, they look like wonders now.
I, I'm not okay. So I might catch this might be another 5-page thread. I'm not a mech fan. Per se. I love Armored Core. It's actually really weird because I love Armored Core, but I'm not a fan
You
of
don't like
other.
any other robot games.
It
I'm
just,
pretty much
they
at the
just,
same.
yeah, they just don't catch me. This is actually, I find this either AC fans are either they love all mecha or they're dedicated to Armored Core. You don't find a lot in between, and I'm definitely on the latter end of that. I don't. The other ones just don't catch me, but there's always been something about Armored Core, with the exception of AC4 and 4 Answer, which that's all right. Those are dirty words too. So we don't say those too much stuff. Just kidding, guys. Just kidding.
So,
I'm not hating right now, so don't send hate my way.
No,
Plenty of good.
just a quick addendum to what Tierson said. Armored Core is currently experimenting. I think we said this earlier in the segment that experimenting with new mechanics. Armored Core 4, I think, was something close to Gundam style. You basically have permanently floating ACs, or close to Zone of Enders, the orbital frames, where the mechas would just zigzag everywhere and then come at you with a blade.
Yeah.
And now in Armored Core 5, you have a front mission style where everything is grounded, completely grounded. Even if you can jump up a bit, you have to stay in the ground eventually.
Well, it's good to experiment, I guess. Even
Hmm.
people do that in their life when they're in their late teens, early 20s. They experiment a little bit. So I guess you gotta at some point from software had to experiment too. It's like, well, let's try this. All right, well, we tried it. So
Hmm.
there it is. Okay, but no. So let's get back to the online stuff.
mhm.
Okay, so
Hmm.
you're saying that so far world mode in the evolution from conquest to world mode is a good one, is a positive one. And now again, back to the region lock. Have you noticed like any distinctions with a wider region lock to basically not being one, with the exception of the Japanese region? I mean, have you come across anything really cool as far as that? Anything distinctive that maybe you never noticed in your region in 5 that you're noticing from other regions when it comes to team names or style or anything?
Mostly about the team play. In Europe, they're very, very disorganized. I'll be honest with that because we've there are times where we had to fight 2 against 4, and me and player called Mechanized. Probably you've probably seen that name before somewhere. Uh, we were both tank players that time, so just 2 tanks against 4 mobile ACs or different kind of ACs, and we still turned them up pretty badly. Mostly because me and Mechanized, we've been playing with each other a lot, so we knew how to move around basically and how to coordinate attack. Now moving here to Verdict Day, uh, we got our butt kicked. Long story short.
I'm going to throw out, Zealous, we've talked about this from time to time. I'm going to throw out the first shot here. The general consensus over here, from many of the people I speak about with Army Corps, is that the same thing would happen to the Japanese players, and that they're lucky that they're not part of our region.
You know, I'm gonna go against the grain on that one. Judge due to what a lot of what we have, especially like the game, not just the gameplay vids, okay, but those who played JP side and have had a chance to participate with them. I know I did earlier on, in the JP release cycle for Vanilla 5, and at spots throughout because I tried to at least keep up with what was happening with that version. But the JP players, you can actually bring a lot to the table. I think that would surprise a number of players here, and we're separate. We'll have to deal with that. We have the two regions, but I think they would make very, very fierce competitors, and I've been pretty darn impressed from what I've seen, both playing against them and from what I've seen in vids.
It's interesting though, because I mean, I have not played on the Japanese side, but I'm basically speaking, that you and I and Cheng and Clark, we all talk about this stuff. The four of us talk about this stuff a lot, and they both say that that Japanese would get slaughtered over here. And I don't think that I don't think I'm misquoting that either. I do think
No,
actually said slaughtered.
yeah, I think if anything, I know Cleric has shared that sentiment, definitely. As we talked about, Chang himself, and due to his experience on, especially the JP servers directly, um, I wonder if that's something that he's, been as direct on or weighed in as much. I think he holds him in pretty high regard considering how much he's over there. I look back at classic AC, okay, when things were a little more separate, and I compare that to some of the more current versions of AC. In classic AC, there are always interesting choices. We did have the JP players coming into the Kai community, such as Naito and some of the others. Now, unfortunately, it was a bit of a laggy connection. We got to play against them. But sometimes you saw just, some odd choices, or just in playstyle, you'd see shotguns being used from, very distant ranges and whatnot, or some different ways to use the cannon type weapons or grenades that a lot of us, wouldn't necessarily look at. And I think that's like two different eras we're dealing with in terms of gameplay and how we would deal with that competitively. I really think five, especially with Verdict Day, would be a different can of worms.
Well, be it as it may, I still want to continue talking trash about it, and that's all this Japanese region. Yeah, let's see it. Come on, guys. I mean, all I ever heard with five was, "Oh, I went over to the Japanese region and played over there." Come on, where's the Japanese? Come on over. Come on over to our region. Let's see what you got. Let's see, because I heard a lot of talking during AC5 about people going over there and coming back, and well, Zealous says that they think they do well. I heard a lot of people talking a lot of shit. So I want to see it.
Well, you could very well have some migrants. I know we've had a number of people that have posted even on ACL saying that they're counting down, waiting for the JP version to come out to go check and play in JP servers so they can keep a better tab on what's happening there, what's happening with the larger community too. You very well may have JP players that have a different version or come to play. I think that'd be great. In fact, I hope for it. But in terms of players, I guess or like some of the keynote players or people to look out for. I mean, I'm not up on like the stream channels on Nico and some of the other really large sites, so it's kind of annoying. I guess myself personally, I would not know what name to look at directly, saying EG, yep, that player right there. That's who I'm really waiting to see. No, it's a little more difficult.
He's being way too serious about me talking shit right now. It's no fun now. It's no fun. Yeah, all right. Okay, no, but okay, so that's cool. So, guys, and I know there probably are some that are still wondering, that's part of why we're doing this, is to try to answer questions that you have as far as the game. And of course, the big one, considering the Verdict Day and like AC5 is so online centric, a lot of these problems appear to have been solved. There's a lot more people out there since they've widened the regions. Conquest, aka World Mode now, definitely sounds like they solved a lot of problems. And things are running a lot smoother, which is great. It's great because I mean, I talked about in shows past. The biggest problem with Conquest wasn't even so much that or the AC5 wasn't even so much that Conquest sucked, but you would have to look at Conquest every single time you go in. It's right there. It's in your face. And for that system to have been done so poorly, what really is and the fact that it was always there and ever present, that's really just kind of, it was a constant reminder. Oh yeah, this Conquest thing, what we based a lot of the mechanics on, yeah, that's shit. So, it's good to see that they've really taken strong steps to fix that. I'm really happy to hear that. And then the region thing, with the region lock, which I'm really excited about.
more open community, more games, more players, and this is something we want to keep going. As we've said countless times, it begins with the foundation, and that foundation being the active player base that you have. Keeping people engaged with the process and what's happening, whether that's during world mode or free battle. And I think free battle will be a part of that too. Just when you're doing your matchups. Now that's something I've done personally done more of with Verdict Day kicking up. I know we had some initial test upon launch. I was playing with Cheng and Cleric and a few others, just testing speeds and testing the new feel and some like the new weapons and whatnot. But going beyond that, as you start to get into the matchmaking process, it's there. You can get hooked up where you need to. Again, the low amount of maps compared to the actual maps available in world mode compared to free, it always irks me a bit. But it's
I think this might be one of those times where we are unanimous in our
yeah,
anger. Normally,
we're
a
both
lot
there.
animated about this stuff, but yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, we're both there. I think that's easily a commonality to agree upon. But uh, free battle is a lot of what you had out of five and whatnot, but it definitely serves its purpose where it is. And I know um, I think a lot of players as well will see that as a great testing ground, whether you're going for rank or leaderboard. I understand, or whether you're testing against either fellow teammates, or you want to get other games in or drop in rooms to battle royales. That's still there. That's still in full force. That's still available. I know one thing myself that holds me back a little bit from fully doing world mode all the time and engaging with that, and why I tend to go towards some of the free battle stuff more is I kind of came into Verdict Day with the loose sense of team, right? Cheng and I were hanging out in a group, and it was opposite for some players. Some people came in and had their teams ready, in place, had a group, ready to go and whatnot. Good on you. You did way better than I did.
Mm.
And I think as a result of that, that puts a little bit of a damper on really going out and engaging in that content, because you're going to want, a group you can talk things over with and, strategize with. So,
Right.
I think that part of it will kick off for me, hopefully sooner rather than later. Probably once, I get more plugged in, whether that's with Rev or wherever else. But for the time being, at least from what I've encountered during free, I mean, it's a decent translation in terms of mechanics. There hasn't been anything crazy in free battle specifically, or any gigantic, bug or something to run into. So that's sound feature wise.
Well, in Moonwalker, you were talking a little bit about that. You're a little concerned about how this is going to go for a lot of the players who don't have a team right now. Well, and obviously everyone has to have a team to be playing, but you mean people who
Yeah.
just made their own team?
Yeah, I was kind of waiting for Zealous to finish up there, but
Oh, sorry, I
I
said
rambled. Go for it.
not a problem. I was just thinking that as you said, Tearson, that there are players here that they always or each player has to have a team, and not everyone has a complete team or their a full squad basically. So
Right.
I was worried that if this player or this one-man team got bored of Verdict Day, he might end up quitting instead of joining other teams to actually have the full experience of World Mode.
Hmm.
So basically, if anyone that's listening this, if you have a one-man team, join up with other teams. Don't just stop there, because you're really missing out on World Mode. I mean, you're not missing out much of the game because everything else you can be done solo, but you'd be meeting more people, making new friends, enemies, whichever you want.
Yeah, make them both. Why not? No, I think yeah. For anybody listening, I mean, if you haven't given teams a chance yet, or you gave teams a chance in five and it just was horrible because of conquest, give it another shot. There, I think with everything they've done with Verdict Day, they give them another chance, and putting together a team, being active with it. I definitely think that everything that they've done is worth another chance at it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Because right now you have, I mean, there's no turn-offs for being in a team, basically. Maybe the only turn-offs is that you have to be dedicated to some teams, but not everyone is a daily player. So you can find that right team that plays in your time zone, or at least the same frequency as you do. So just keep searching and check the forums.
There you go.
And there you go. And some of you who may be on one-man teams, if you have your parameters set to open and you don't have any restrictions on your team join, if you know you're not going to be pursuing a team, fully yourself, I just encourage you, try and loop people to where they can get engaged with teams and where they can get engaged with communities. It was funny. When I started up Verdict Day, again, this thing with not coming in with the team, I had my parameters set to open. I just made Frighteners and had a GNL logo, and I actually had someone that popped in and joined. We had a great conversation and whatnot, but I was just up front and said, this is not going to be a permanent team or whatnot. And I was sure to, I added them, got on my friends list, told them about the various forum groups that are available, some of the different teams that are out there, and just to, encourage them to get plugged in. And I try to check in periodically just to see, where he's at with that. But by all means, continue that. I mean, building community with NAC doesn't have to be, some massive like mountain movement that you do, or something that is going to encompass like hundreds of people at once, or thousands. No, it could start with just player by player. So if you run into even those small things, that's how we help build towards something greater. So.
Nice speech.
Sure.
I mean, making a speech. This is not like an inaugural address. For goodness sake.
All right. Well, is there anything else we want to cover on the line? I mean, world mode sounds a lot better. The free play and all that. Mercs being a merc, that's pretty much the same. That works pretty much the same as what's there.
Oh yeah. Now you remind me about the mercenary jobs. Apparently, or recently discovered that you can be part of the Reaper squad from the story.
Yes. We had some posts on ACL about that. Some people that were, who was it? You pointed out who made that initial post, but yeah, they got
Blue Hyena.
Blue Hyena. Thank you. Yeah, you got got a note from the Reaper squad and got the recruit. So there's some fun surprises like that waiting out there too. This was a fairly recent thread that came up, and I hope there's still a few more of those little Easter eggs out there as you guys play through and get engaged with them. And hey, you run into that kind of stuff, post up about it. It's great. I know.
What exactly happened with that? They tried hiring him for a job, or?
Yeah, long story short, Blue Hyena wanted to register as a mercenary, like any other player, and he got a different request, like a unique request from the emblem of Reaper Squad. We still haven't confirmed if it's true or not, but what I'm thinking is that it's probably related to to the medal, player medal, that you have to either beat the Reaper Squad 5 times or join them join their squad for 5 times, and you get a special medal for that.
Huh. Interesting.
And just a while ago, I was checking the world map. When you have those mini emblems showing the teams fighting against each other?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just saw some Reaper Squad emblems there. And it's not colored like in the faction where it's blue, red, or green. It's gray. And they've won few battles. So that's basically confirming that there is a Reaper Squad and hiring players to do their job.
That's very interesting. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
And that's awesome. That's awesome. And we have all these big giant weapon things that are going to be popping up. There's a couple out there already, but I guess there's going to be more, and special missions and such. Cool. So hey, there's things going on. That's great. That's pretty neat.
So, if anything, too, I know we're probably going to have some more notes on some specific mechanics as we get, more involved in both, world and, free battle, about just some of the new movement and how the new AC types and whatnot, and how, weapons, defenses come into play. That'll all come in. But about mercenary, real quick, I've only done so a few times. I know, in fact, my first Merc assignment, Tierson, was when you had me come along for Mission 10.
That's right.
And, before that, I got a couple of requests that came in almost, like, instantly as soon as I'd signed up. And maybe it's just because I didn't merc as much in Vanilla 5, but I was kind of surprised just by how immediate that was. And, I mean, I know some of this is due to new AC, immediate, surge of the community and whatnot, but pretty darn spontaneous stuff. And it's good to see. I hope it stays like that. So.
No, one of my favorite things to do in AC5 was to pour myself out to the highest. It's usually there's usually something going on. I mean, there were some nights where there wasn't a lot, but generally I could do that, and I would get requests on a regular basis. So, I'm looking forward to doing it again.
There we go.
Just a quick note about free battles. Even though it might look empty, that's just because From Software still made that full rooms would disappear from the list. So unlike For Answer or AC4, where even full rooms would display, in AC5 and Verdict Dates, it just vanishes from the list. So you have to keep searching basically, or make your own room. But there are people playing and waiting for free battles, so don't worry about that.
Yeah.
All right.
See, that's going to wrap it up.
Think so. So, as we close out and we get ready to transition into our period of new cycle and new week, we do have a couple of notes. I have one that I gotta just pitch now. I do not want to forget this. We talked about it week after week after week, and we finally have a breakthrough on it regarding the video competition between Griffon and Deemer. Drumroll.
Competition. All right, what do you got?
So here's the deal. The last time that we heard from Deemer, and I will post a link to the ACU thread and to the video link that Griffon posted, but the last we heard from Deemer was he had an issue with his S video and some connection issues with his devices, and he was working with that. And I'm not too sure whether it was just life circumstances or the way he got busy, but we haven't heard from him in a pretty good while now, over a month, I believe. And Griffon was saying that he wanted to wait, he wanted to have both videos released simultaneously, but he doesn't want to keep the lid on things any longer. He doesn't want to hold the suspense. So Griffon has posted his video. He's released it. It's out there. He's given the link. I encourage you guys to check it out. I'm crossing my fingers, if Deemer can come back and if he has footage too, that he can get his posted. But at least we have half of the equation. So it may not end up being a full competition after all, but we do have an AC music video generated out of all this. So
well, that's cool.
It's been a while since I've seen a music video, to be honest.
It has. It has. The AMV process. And this is something really cool. I think there's a lot of ingenuity that can go into these, or it's something you can just post a few intro videos of and let go. But let's face it, if you're gonna put the amount of time and respect you want to do a project like this, it's gonna be something involved. And we've seen some really cool works come out in the past. So I'm not gonna ramble about it. Check it out. You guys make up your own minds about it. Hope you enjoy it, and cross your fingers for Deemer's release.
Yeah.
And before Tierson does his plugins, I just want to say that I will update the Verdict Day user guide to 2.0 just to basically confirm everything that's in the game, just for people who hasn't gotten the game yet to know what's there and what's not, and the things that I've wrote wrong.
It's awesome. And if somebody can put together a complete parts list, I will love you long time. Because I really want one. It's driving me crazy I don't have one. Okay, so I'll do my plugins. As I guess we're going to call them that from now on. It's just plugs, but that's all right. I'll call them my plugins. Okay, guys. So don't forget to go to unrecordedlegacy.com. Got questions, or if you just want to yell at us on how badly the show was, just email us at ravens'voiceacl@gmail.com, or go ahead and post in our dedicated section over at ACL Forums. Don't forget to register there. And let's see. I have no idea what we're doing next week, so we haven't planned that far ahead right now. So I got nothing for next week. Moonwalker, thank you very much for coming on. It's nice to finally get you on here. We've been trying for the last couple of weeks, so it's been great to have you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you again for stopping by, especially on the this was something on the fly before, but I'm really glad you could come in. So thanks again. You enjoy Verdict Day, and hopefully catch you online a few times. You get a free battle or so in. We'll see.
Sure.
You
know my PSN, so you'll find me anytime.
I got you.
All right, that'll do it then. So until next week, guys, have fun, enjoy the new game, and we will see you next week.
Have a nice war.